Hey everyone, and welcome to my review for House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 6, Smallfolk. And this was an interesting episode, that's for sure. There were parts that I absolutely loved and will remember as some of the best scenes of the season. But there was also some stuff I found profoundly silly and disappointing. So for me, it basically ended up as another middling episode. Now let's get into all that with the positives, negatives, my top 5 moments, and a final score. Starting with the positives, there are a lot of them this episode, like Jason Lannister and the Lannister army reaching the Golden Tooth. This opening scene wasn't as good or memorable as others this season, but I still really enjoyed it, and found Jason hilarious with his pompous, entitled attitude, expecting a small castle to eagerly attend them and provide for their soldiers, which I assume means just the officers, since there's no way that castle can feed so many men. Jason even brought lions on campaign, which is such a delightfully absurd and unnecessary waste of time and resources. It seems pretty clear the kind of commander he is, and I feel sorry for the men he'll lead into battle, especially against the Riverlords, who we've already seen are vicious warriors ready for battle. Moving to the capital, I really enjoyed the first screen council scene, watching Aemond own the room, letting them know what's going to be done with a hint of threat behind every word. Although his counselors disagreed, I think the idea to ally with the Triarchy is smart, and it's nice hearing the Red Kraken discussed, even mentioning a possible marriage with Alicent Hightower. But I do think Aemond is being too reckless with the Riverlands campaign. Sending armies from two sides is smart, but they need a Dragon Lord with them or risk losing everything to Daemon and Caraxes. Aemond must realize this, so I think he wants to stay in the capital to make sure his brother doesn't speak out against him. This episode really showed me that despite his confidence and relative competence, Aemond really does lack experience, seeming to be entirely unconcerned with the potential for a riot and flight of the peasants. But I also appreciate that he recognizes this to some degree by recalling Otto Hightower. I could really feel the tension and intimidation in his conversation with wounded Aegon. For me, it seems like he really wants to end his brother once and for all, but realizes it'll be near impossible to get away with it as Aegon is constantly surrounded by potential witnesses. Returning to the council scene, I did feel bad for Alicent when she lost her position and whatever scrap of influence she still had. But it did seem somewhat fitting that she started this mess to deny a woman her rightful inheritance, only for her efforts to result in a court where the input of a woman is not wanted, believing they should focus on domestic pursuits. Alicent had some more great moments this episode, as the actress really brings her A-game to every scene, like when she's looking in on Aegon, and as she said goodbye to her brother and Criston Cole when they left for the Riverlands. I really enjoyed her conversation with Gwaine as they mentioned 16-year-old Daeron Targaryen, who is a year older than the books, but is being presented in a similar way as the best of the three brothers, which, as they said, might be because he was raised away from Alicent and the royal court. Spoiler alert for the rest of the series, but Alicent's scene with Gwaine and Cole turned extra sad when I realized this would be the last time they saw each other, as Gwaine would likely meet his end like Cole during the Riverlands campaign. This is different from the books, where Gwaine actually remained in the capital to serve as second in command of the City Watch until killed by a fellow guard still loyal to the Blacks. I also want to mention the Larys Strong scenes, both with Aemond and Aegon. During the Aemond scene, I was pretty shocked by Larys's clumsy and obvious attempt to be hand. When he first started speaking, I thought he must have some secondary agenda, cause what he was doing seemed ridiculous and doomed to fail as he hadn't built a close relationship with Aemond. But when Aemond shut him down, as he should, Larys got upset like he was expecting a different result, which was never gonna happen. This was a really strange and amateurish miscalculation for someone I thought was a great spy master. But at least I was happy to see some cunning when he spoke to Aegon about being disabled, positioning himself to be the king's most trusted advisor should he ever return to power, which is similar to the books, as Larys ended up being one of Aegon's most loyal allies. It was also smart to convince Aegon he must cut down on Milk of the Poppy, as the new goal of Larys will be to help the king recover as quickly as possible to replace Aemond. This part is different from the books, where Aegon heavily drank Milk of the Poppy throughout his recovery, sleeping 9 out of every 10 hours. But, spoiler alert for the rest of the series, there is a later period where Aegon gets hurt again, and for those wounds he doesn't drink Milk of the Poppy to remain strong and coherent. So it looks like they're combining those experiences. Leaving the capital, I always enjoy the Adam and Alan of Hall scenes, and really felt for Adam this time as he is desperate for recognition and advancement, but is always ignored, while Alan is given the chance to rise even though he doesn't want it. Over in the Vale, things are getting very interesting with Rhaena, who apparently has been given the Nettle storyline from the books, which is a little disappointing that we won't see that great character, but does make sense given the limitations of the show. Another spoiler alert for the rest of the season, but that clearly must be the wild dragon sheep stealer in the Vale. So I'm curious if Rhaena will bond with him in the same way as Nettles, by offering sheep for the dragon to consume until he grew comfortable with her presence. Now let's go to Dragonstone, where honestly there was quite a lot I didn't enjoy, but thankfully there was some stuff I liked, like the clever scheme prepared by Rhaenyra and Mysaria that worked perfectly and turned the capital against the Greens. It was nice to see the Queen actually make a smart decision and be rewarded for it. I even like her actions at the end of the episode, which, although impulsive and reckless, I completely understood as she could no longer hold back from flying to face what she thought was a Green allied Dragon Lord on Seasmoke. Very cool seeing her fly a dragon to a potential battle. But now let's move on to the negatives, which unfortunately there are a few, beginning once again with the Daemon scenes. I really don't like what they've done with his character, who had so much potential. Instead of making him a great but ruthless military commander who cunningly conquers the Riverlands and outsmarts the Greens, he's portrayed as an incompetent mess of a human being, too busy fighting his inner demons to do anything of any value. Alice Rivers, on the other hand, seems extremely bright, knowledgeable, and capable of anything, including assassinating Lord Tully. They actually have managed to make her a fascinating character, but for me it's hard to enjoy it with Daemon around. Fortunately, I think they're finally moving beyond all the dream stuff and we can get back to the Riverlands campaign. Although this next one wasn't a big deal, I was a bit disappointed Corlys was just named Hand of the Queen but didn't do anything of consequence this episode, except promote Alan and mention a sailing mission. So I'd like to see more strategy and advice from him. I'm also disappointed we still haven't seen the sowing of the seeds. They keep dragging it out, doing one dragon at a time. I really want to see the actual event from the books where many people, commoner and noble-born, try their luck, with disastrous consequences for most. This event might still happen, which is how Hugh and Ulf might get involved, but for me it's taking way too long. And finally, I unfortunately have to mention Queen Rhaenyra, as I actually feel similar to her as I do with Daemon, since for me at least, the show has really failed to make her seem like a competent leader. Just because she wasn't trained in warfare doesn't mean she can't use reason and good judgment to make informed decisions, or project confidence, or demand respect from her counselors without slapping them. But instead it feels like she's utterly lost and keeps complaining about everything. Although I love the Steffon scene, I was again disappointed in Rhaenyra and all her counselors that they didn't properly prepare for the dragon taming ritual by having crossbowmen in the hall, waiting to come in and fire from a distance to end Sir Steffon's suffering, given the likelihood it would end in dragonfire. I also don't like that the Queen is keeping things from Jace, who so far has proven to be far more competent and responsible than her. And then there was the moment I in no way was expecting, when Rhaenyra entered into a relationship with Mysaria. Where in the world did this come from? Maybe it's just me and you guys saw this coming, but I did not see any hints of a possible relationship or ever feel any chemistry between them. And on top of that, the catalyst to their intimacy was a story about Mysaria suffering horrible assaults from her father. Escalating from that story to them kissing took me by such surprise, at first I didn't even react. I needed a second to convince myself this was actually part of the show, and then when it all sank in, I just burst out laughing. Maybe other people enjoyed this because it adds a new layer to everything, but to me it just seemed so forced, silly, and unserious. In the books, things go a bit differently, as Rhaenyra actually gives permission for Mysaria to continue her relationship with Daemon as a way to keep him happy, while she in turn gained weight because she turned to food for comfort. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this storyline from the books either, as it felt cruel for Rhaenyra to endure such humiliation. But it does make me think there is a way to turn this Rhaenyra-Mysaria romance into something more interesting for the future, if Mysaria does end up returning to her relationship with Daemon, but this time on the orders of Rhaenyra, who will use her to keep an eye on Daemon and manipulate him from afar. And to give it some drama for the audience, maybe Rhaenyra and Mysaria could continue their relationship in secret throughout all this. For me, that would be a way to turn this into something more interesting, but for now, I feel this new romance was poorly executed. Now let's move on to my top 5 moments, starting at number 5 with the dragon Seasmoke bonding his former rider's half-brother Adam of Hall. Although of course I would prefer the sowing of the seeds event, this was still a really cool scene that raised a lot of interesting questions, like how Seasmoke found him, why the dragon specifically chose and sought him out, along with what happened to Laenor, though it seems the most likely answer is he died. Adam of Hall is one of my favorite characters from all the books, so I really look forward to seeing him fly, as well as the reactions of his brother and father. My guess is that Corlys will now show favoritism to Adam instead of Alan, reversing their roles in an interesting way. At the number 4 spot, I went with the King's Landing food riots that nearly reached Alicent and Helena. I already mentioned it before, but what a great plan the Blacks had by starving the capital, sending propaganda agents to direct anger toward the Greens, then providing ships of food for the Smallfolk. A brilliant plan that worked perfect and gave us a very tense and exciting scene where guards were killed to safely evacuate the queens. I also loved seeing Hugh Hammer with much of his kindness stripped away as he violently assaulted a random man to steal food for his starving wife and sick daughter. It's rough watching a nice man turn ruthless, but I certainly understand his position and can't blame him for doing whatever it takes for his family. For the third best moment of the night, we go to the first Black Council scene where Sir Steffon Darklyn is revealed to be a Dragonseed candidate. This is different from the books where he makes the attempt and the same thing happens, but there's no given connection to House Targaryen. But I think they actually handled it better on the show, as this trace of Targaryen blood makes his decision to try more understandable. I was also really happy Steffon courageously volunteered without hesitation, as this really made him seem like a brave and loyal Kingsguard, a strong and touching scene. For the second best moment of the night, I went with Ulf the White listening to Black faction propaganda in a tavern. I love this scene so much I almost made it my number 1 pick, as it was absolutely fascinating to watch. From the lady coming in and loudly spreading rumors about the Greens hosting feasts and parties in the Red Keep, to Ulf unhappily eating fish soup, getting angrier and angrier until he can't help an outburst, declaring that the old King Viserys enjoyed his balls and feasts, but would never indulge in such luxuries and opulence while the Smallfolk starved. Which then led seamlessly to the declaration of Rhaenyra as the rightful heir, who would never let such hardship befall them. The best part for me was seeing Ulf's face as she described the food the royals were eating. He looked like he could taste that beef and gravy. This entire scene was fantastic. I've rewatched it several times and it might be one of my favorite scenes of the entire season. And finally, for the best moment of the night, I'm going with the tragic but badass death by dragonfire of the Queensguard Lord Commander Sir Steffon Darklyn. What an amazing but devastating scene that, even though I knew what would happen, had me on the edge of my seat. I really liked Steffon, so for a brief moment when Sea Smoke seemed to calm down, I hoped beyond reason that the show somehow decided to let him live and claim a dragon. But of course they didn't, and Sea Smoke burned him and a dragon keeper, who also went out like a boss, slitting his own throat with a special dragon glass dagger. The look of utter horror on Rhaenyra was really well acted, as you can see the regret and guilt all over her face. I also feel like they handled Steffon's failure very well, as all throughout the ritual I spotted several instances where he did something I imagined the dragon wouldn't like. First, he was wearing armor and weapons which were not necessary or helpful. Then, when Sea Smoke approached, he reached for his sword. Throughout the event, he kept looking back instead of focusing forward. He lacked confidence in his voice. He stepped gingerly and cautiously when he approached, and he assumed success before even mounting the dragon. All of these are completely understandable mistakes that could happen to anyone under the stress of the situation, but for me at least, those seem like the reasons Sea Smoke rejected him as a rider. That may also be the reason why Sea Smoke wanted Adam, as perhaps through the blood relation to his old rider, he can feel the man's confidence, ambition, and untapped potential. So that's my review for House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 6, Smallfolk. For me, the big swings of ups and downs this week created another middling episode. But what brings it down a bit further is that there are only 2 episodes left, and I was really expecting things to be far more interesting and eventful by this point. But I still have high hopes for the ending, and if these last 2 episodes can really deliver, I'll be happy with the season. Judging this episode is tough because there was a lot I didn't like, but overall there was far more I enjoyed, including some of my favorite scenes in the entire series. So I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10 like last week, though I actually did enjoy this one more I think, so I should probably lower last week's score to 7.5. But what do you all think? Do you agree this is another middling episode? And what did you all think of the Rhaenyra-Mysaria relationship? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to come back for my next review along with the Dance of the Dragons themed videos released every Sunday. So that's it for now guys, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Mamoru, the Obscured Hermit Alchemist, Kurgan the Immortal, Griffin Giant's Hammer, and Dane Battlehammer. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.